Hey up! As you can see, the weather interfered somewhat with the filming of this video, so I didn't sort of film it on the level I would have liked to. I still had a few more shots I wanted to get, but it started thundering and lightning, and then the hailstone came down. So I decided I would just have to make do with what I had. I'm going to show you how to fit the touring seats front and rear for the Royal Enfield Classic 350. We had a bit of a vote last week and it seems overwhelmingly that's what people wanted to see first, so that's what you're getting. First of all, and I don't normally do this, but the circumstances were special, I'd like to shout out some birthday wishes for a Robert Jennings, who lives in Texas, over in that America. A couple of weeks ago I received an email from his daughter Elizabeth, and she explained to me that her father Robert had been a fan of this channel for several years, that he particularly enjoys my ride through the English countryside, and that he was so worried about the survival of the channel during the pandemic that he would stack up all my videos on autoplay and just play them all day, every day, to ensure that I got enough ad revenue to keep the channel going. My apologies to his family that had to endure that, but also my heartfelt thanks to Robert for considering me in that way. Now, this video will be published on the 3rd of June. It's Robert's 75th birthday on the 4th of June. Happy birthday, Robert, for the 4th of June, and many happy returns. Right, let's get on. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to fit the rider's seat and the pillion seat. That's the touring seats from Royal Enfield. I got these seats from Hitchcock's. I will leave a link in the video description down below should you wish to get some yourself. I also got the cosmetic seat springs, but on attempting to read the instructions, which are those microscopic ones that Royal Enfield put out every now and again, it was clear that this was quite a big involved job that required removing the rear mudguard, which I thought might interfere with people's understanding of the seat fitting guide. So I've decided to put that off and produce a standalone video showing how to put those in. It just struck me that if I produced a video covering the seats and the springs, it might cloud the issue somewhat for people and cause a bit of confusion. Royal Enfield's instructions are not the best. Like I said, with the spring kit, it was those tiny little microscopic instructions that, you know, you need a magnifying glass to read. The instructions for the seats were better, but it looked like all the illustrations were like a 10th generation photocopy. So the quality of the actual illustrations themselves were terrible, and I think whoever had put the instructions together also had difficulties interpreting where various fasteners were because you couldn't see them. There were just sort of black areas on a really bad photograph, and I actually realised as I was going along that because they couldn't see them, that actually put the arrows pointing to where they are in the wrong place. So it's probably just as well that I'm making this video. Right, so these are the touring seats in brown for the Classic 350. In common with a lot of other models, they are really nice quality, with some additional detailing and embellishments that I think really sets the bike off. I haven't had a chance to ride the bike with them on yet because, as I've said, the weather just didn't permit it, and again, I'll do that in a separate video. The seats are a sort of a multi-panelled tuck and roll style with a grey piping around the top. They do seem to be a little bit firmer than the standard seats. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but a firmer seat, generally speaking, for most people is more comfortable over distance than a very soft squidgy seat. And I do know from talking to chief designer Mark Wells at the Royal Enfield event a few weeks ago that Royal Enfield are putting a lot of effort into their seats lately. They take rider comfort very seriously. Now, these new seats can be fitted independently of each other. You don't have to fit both at the same time, or if you wish, you can just fit one and leave the other one as standard. So I'm going to show you how to change the rider seat first, and then I'll show you how to change the pillion pad. Now, changing both seats, if you've got the right tools, shouldn't take any more than half an hour. It is a relevantly simple and straightforward job. The biggest hassle you're going to have is getting threads to line up, especially with the pillion pad. Now, in the Royal Enfield instructions, they tell you to remove the rider's seat by removing it from the mounting bracket rather than removing the mounting bracket from the bike. I appreciate from their point of view this is probably the quickest and simplest way to do it, but I like to think ahead while I'm doing this kind of job, and it struck me that I would quite like to rust-proof the top of the frame underneath the seat and the seat bracket itself whilst I was doing this job, because as you're aware, on any motorcycle the area underneath the seats is the most prone to early corrosion. It's inaccessible, moisture will stay in there forever and a day once it gets there, so it just made sense to me to carry this task out whilst I was changing the seats. You don't have to, it's up to you. Now, it's impossible to get the camera angle on these fasteners while the seat is on the bike, so just for your reference, these two 10mm bolts are what hold the seat onto the seat bracket. Now, it did strike me that if you don't have a very small 1/4" drive ratchet, you might struggle to get these off while they're in situ on the bike. It is quite a tight area, you're working blind, and there are some washers and rubber fittings. Granted, even using the method that I'm going to show you, you're going to have to remove these anyway, but at least when you're doing it in a situation like this, you've got control over where the fittings go. Because if they fall off while the seat is in situ, there's a good chance they're going to fall somewhere inaccessible between the frame. I just think this is a safer way of doing it. Underneath the seat you will see two bolts that hold the seat mounting bracket onto the frame of the bike. They're both 12mm. You've got one at the bottom here and then the other one just above it. Removing both of these will allow you to lift the entire seat assembly away from the frame. And the fasteners are actually underneath the seat on the right hand side of the bike, as you see here. And it's just a matter of bracing the bolts on the other side and then unfastening these nuts so that you can withdraw the bolts from the bike and then lift the seat away, like this. Obviously, when carrying this out, be careful not to chip your frame whilst withdrawing the bolts. I actually think there's less likelihood of you causing any damage with slips than there is if you remove it Royal Enfield's way, but that's down to you. And once you've done that, just grasp the seat by the back end and gently lift it out of the way, and it's removed. Now, as I said earlier on, I wanted to take the opportunity while the seat was off to wax oil and protect these areas of the frame. They're not very accessible when it comes to cleaning and drying the bike, so it just made sense for me now to give it a coat of Bilt Hamber's wax oil. I really like this stuff. I've been using it for a couple of years now. It seems to do the trick and it dries quickly. It's only semi-permanent. If you decide you don't want it there anymore, you can easily remove it with a pre-paint wipe. But it forms a reasonably tough wax-like barrier that stops moisture getting to your paintwork and protects against corrosion. I've always used something similar to this on all my bikes. It's a no-brainer. Once rust finds its way into your frame, the clock's ticking basically. Prevention is better than a cure, and using products like this will enhance the lifespan of any vehicle. I'll see if I can find a link to this Bilt Hamber stuff and I'll leave it in the video description down below. And of course the beauty of using the removal method that I've shown you here is that you can get at absolutely everything, including both sides of the seating bracket, so it's all protected and you don't have to worry about it too much in the future. And the beauty of this particular wax oil product is that the solvent in it is naphtha based, so even in cooler temperatures it sets within half an hour. So you get a quick turnaround with the refit. The old spirit-based type wax oils can take anything up to 24 hours. So it's just a matter of putting the bracket onto your new touring seat, replace the fasteners and tighten them up, and it's ready to fit to the bike. Now you'll notice that at the front of the seat in the plastic seat pan there is a square aperture, and this is designed to slide onto a locator lug which is fastened onto the back of the fuel tank. This holds the seat secure at the front and stops it moving about once you've fastened those rear fasteners back up. So when refitting the seat, what you need to do is make sure that that locator tab or bracket inserts properly into the aperture, and when you've done that you can just drop the seat down. There is a little bit of resistance because you've got to push it past the pillion pad, and I found that the seat bracket lined up with the frame without any problems at all. I think it would be very difficult to get this wrong actually. Now it is possible that you may have to do a little bit of jiggling to get these holes to line up correctly. As I say, I had no problems whatsoever. But once they are lined up, it's just a matter of replacing those two bolts and then fastening up the nuts on the end. And of course the beauty of doing it this way is that you can see exactly what you're doing instead of doing it blindly. It's then just a simple matter of replacing the nuts and tightening them up. Right, so that's the rider's seat swapped. Now time for the pillion. Now this is actually held onto the bike via the grab rail. Quite a clever little setup actually, although it can be a little bit frustrating getting everything to line back up again when it comes to putting the fasteners back in. Now the instructions suggest that these are 10mm hex. It's a little bit misleading really because they're actually 6mm hex sockets. Now you will feel quite a lot of resistance while you're removing these because they've used medium strength thread lock. Remove the two bolts from each side, but when it comes to removing the last couple of Allen bolts, remember to support the grab rail because obviously it's liable to drop, and if it does it could cause damage to your rear light or your rear mudguard, which obviously is not desirable. Just a precaution. It does actually hug the pillion pad quite tightly, so it might not be an issue, but better to be safe than sorry. And once you've done that, the pillion pad will lift up in a very similar way, lifting it from the back. And as you can see, there are two sort of L-shaped locator hooks which fit into a corresponding space on the seat frame of the bike. Now this is where the weather started to turn on me a bit. Obviously I did wax oil the seat frame for the rear pillion, but I didn't film that. The most important things that you need to know are that there are some spacers or inserts in your old seat which need to be removed and transferred over to your new seat. And these can simply be pushed out using your fingers from the inside of the seat. Now there's a silver one at the back on each side and a black one at the front on each side, and as you can see here they're slightly different lengths. The silver ones are longer than the black ones, so it's important you don't get them mixed up and that they're replaced in the same order on your new seat. Now the silver ones seem to be quite a slack fit. The black ones were a tighter fit for some reason. Just be aware on the inside of your seat, pre-fitted, there will be a rubber grommet. you have to be careful not to displace this while you're putting the inserts in. Just take care to make sure that the grommets and the spacers are seated properly before going ahead with the installation. Now, you've got to make sure that those plastic hooks on the seat pan engage with the corresponding slots in the seat frame, and it's fitted in a very similar way really to the front seat. You slide it in from the front and then seat it down at the back. It's then time to put the grab handle in place and start to replace the fasteners. Now, this was the most difficult part of the whole job, is getting everything to line up so that you can get those fasteners into the corresponding threads, and this is when it actually really started throwing it down. The problem that I have when I'm doing these kind of jobs is that I have to give the camera the best eye line so that you can see what's happening, which means I often can't get the perfect vantage point to line stuff up. Like any new seat, these are designed to be a tight fit, and the first time you fit them there's quite a bit of pushing, pulling and jiggling about involved to get everything lined up. Once you do, the bolts will go in quite easily, but it's just getting to that point where you've got everything lined up. Just be patient, they do fit, but you might find that getting these bolts in are the most problematic part of the entire job, especially if it starts chucking it down in the interim. And that's basically it. You've successfully swapped your standard seats for the Royal Enfield touring seats. Now obviously I haven't tried these seats out yet, there was no way I was riding in that weather. But I will review these seats in full once I get a chance. I tried my best to drive the bike off to get some sort of decent shots for you to see, but I was fighting a losing battle. Each time I thought it had stopped, the rain would just start again, and then it got worse and worse and worse until I just had to pack everything up and put it away. These brown seats I think were a good choice. I'm pleased with them. It's a dark brown, which does look a little bit as though it's black in these pictures. That's just the vagaries of videography, I'm afraid. The lighting conditions certainly weren't helping. As with all Royal Enfield touring seats, they do add an extra touch of class to the bike. They are a major step up in quality compared to the originals, and I can't wait to try them out and get some more miles on this bike. I'm sorry that this video hasn't turned out to be all I'd hoped it would be. This is the problem with these sort of videos. They take a long time to film and you are very dependent on what the weather's doing. Either way, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. As a pure fitting video, I hope you found it useful. If you do, please leave a like, and if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. I am of course going to be back next week, so until then, please ride safely, and I'll see you soon.